Good morning. My name is Stépan Brrandt. I'm the director of Futurium in Berlin, Germany. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to present Futurium at the Future Museum Forum. The invitation is a great honor, and I would have loved to come to Busan in person, but regrettably an urgent scheduling conflict interfered. That's why we have to switch to the digital version for now, but I hope that you will still get at least a small impression of Futurium. And I would like to now share my screen with you for a short presentation, and I would like to start with some facts about our museum. So I hope you can see the presentation, and I will now start with the slides. Futurium is centered right in the middle of Berlin, in the very heart of Berlin, close to the Chancellery, to the Parliament, to the Bundestag, to the main station. You will see it here. So if you are visiting Berlin, it's just 5 minutes away from the main station. So it is definitely worth a visit. Some very facts about the Futurium. We opened in September 2019. Due to Corona, we had several closure phases because of the pandemic. So the last 5 years or more than 5 years since we are operating are not fully covered. So I would say at least 1.5 years you have to deduct because it was more or less Corona driven, closed or very much restricted. But nevertheless, despite all these challenges, Futurium attracted more than 2.9 million visitors since then. We will reach the 3 million probably in April, also, which means this month we will reach the 3 million. And both in 2023 and 2024, more than 700,000 visitors came to Futurium, which brings us among the top 5 best visited museum places in Berlin. And one contributing factor is, of course, the free admission that will last at least until end of 2028. We will hope that it is much longer. It's always a financial question, of course, but I think free admission removes some serious financial hurdles for people to visit Futurium, and I would say the success of Futurium is also connected with that. We have as well more than 260,000 followers on social media, which brings us, at least in Germany, also in the top group of cultural institutions. In 2021, we won the Luigi Micheletti Award. It's a European Museum Award for Innovative Science Museums. And just in 2024, an award for National Education for Sustainable Development by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research and the German Commission for UNESCO. What's Futurium? These were some, let's say, numbers, some facts, but now what is the profile, what is the content? We call ourselves House of Futures with the guiding question, how do we want to live? That means that we don't give I would say a closed or finished version of the future and give the people a forecast how they will live in 20 or 30 years. Nobody can do this. This is not, I would say, that this is not serious. No, we want to show approaches that have the potential for shaping the future, but we also want to have an open discussion about it. Therefore, we call ourselves House of Futures, to have this openness, to have this debate, to have this inclusiveness. We want to address all those that are interested in the future. I mentioned already the free entry. And of course, we try to be a translator between different areas of society, which means we are a science communication center, I would say, science communicators, but in an innovative way. And we want to give visitors impulses for action to shape, at the end, a sustainable future. We are not just an exhibition. We have a large exhibition area. I will talk about it later, but we are a combination of exhibition, event space, and lab, both in the analog and digital world. So therefore, we also call ourselves not so much a museum, but a house of futures with different areas of program. And we try to connect information, imagination, and sensuous experience, and would like to create a resonance so that people not only, I would say, cognitively get the facts or get the information, but also emotionally. We want to connect emotion and rationality, which we think would result in a much greater impact of the content that we are showing here. And overall, we want to strengthen the futures literacies of our visitors. I will talk about this one a bit later, but it is very important for us to make people more futures literate. And as I said, we are not giving a prognosis. We have no crystal ball at Futurium. This is something we will tell everybody, every journalist, every visitor, that we really would like to stay open, would like to have an open discussion about potential and possible futures. And overall, we, I think, are connected to this whole thinking of hermeneutic analysis of diverging futures. This is some slide that we derived from Armin Grunwald, who is one of the leading scientists in terms of future scenarios in Germany. He's a big scientist also in the field of technology and check of results of technology, of consequences of technology to societies. And what he thinks is more or less a circle that never comes to an end. So we have in the present challenges, we have problems, we connect them with our expectations, fears, visions, utopias, dystopias, and then we come to an enlightened and deliberate discussion about diverging and contested futures. And this is something we try to provide here at Futurium, the discussion about diverging and contested futures. And this ideally will lead us to learning effects about ourselves, about perspectives, attitudes, and conflicts. And this will reflect back to the present. And so this is, as I said, a never-ending circle, and we as Futurium, we are one wheel into this circle, and of course an area for discussing this diverging and contested futures. A second more theoretical connection of our Futurium profile is the advancement of science communication. You see on this chart the paradigm shift in the conceptualization of science communication. On the left side, you see the so-called deficit model, which means the science is teaching the public about certain contents. And then you go to a more dialogic version where science is explaining and even debating with the public, but ideally we want to go even further to a participation model where co-production and contextualization takes place between science and the public. But of course, we as Futurium, we cover all three areas. We have the more classical formats with teaching and explaining. We have the debate formats, but also the co-production and the contextualization formats. So what do we know about our public, about our audience? We can say from some ongoing research that takes place more or less every year that our audience is much younger compared to the average of the other Berlin museums. We are about 5 years below the Berlin average and 10 percentage points above the Berlin average in terms of people under 40 years visiting the Futurium, our house. So we have at least 54% of people are under 40 years and visiting our house. And we have a higher share of female visitors than male visitors, which is interesting with the regard that typically, at least in Germany, I don't know how it is, for instance, in South Korea, but in Germany, more technology-oriented museums have a tendency to have a higher percentage of male visitors. And so we are happy to have kind of a balanced gender balance. And this is not so typical, at least in the field of museums that we are covering. We still have a higher educated audience. 55% of visitors have a university or university degree. This means that still we are working on attracting more people that have no college degrees or university degrees, because we want to be, of course, a reference point for everybody with higher or with lower education background. This is something that we really try to address. And overall, the visitor satisfaction with our offerings is very high. So there is a scale between 1, which is the best grade, to 5, which is the worst grade. And on this scale, we get a visitor satisfaction of 1.5. So this is in a nutshell what we can say about that. Now to our program. As I already mentioned, we have 3 major pillars of our program, which is the exhibition on 3,000 square meters with 3 so-called thinking spaces. Also, you can call them areas that are parts of our exhibition. And it's the area of nature, the area of human and society, and the area of technology. So as you see, we try to have kind of a holistic view on future and therefore nature, human, and technology. Our forum is a place for the exchange of ideas and innovative formats. So it's our event program, many interesting formats from pub quizzes to scientific lectures. And we have our Futurium lab, which is the place for trying things out, experimenting, crafting, as well as our well-known workshop program. Each year, we try to bring in a new so-called focus topic, which changes the program and the offerings in our complete house, which would mean that we are changing or updating our permanent exhibition with this focus topic, as well as our lab, our workshop program, our event program. In 2023 and 4, the focus topic was democracy. And then the last one, which started last year, was natural resources. Both very, as you see, well frequented by the public. And in 2025, in May, we will start with our new focus topic, which will be agriculture. So if you are in Berlin, you of course are invited to visit us and take a look at our new focus topic. But our, I would say, haptic and analog offerings are not the only side of our program. We also have the so-called digital Futurium. And here I have an example, our archive of futures, which means that you can find all contents that took place at Futurium at a certain point in our digital archive. And so even things that went out of the exhibition because we put in some new topics will be in this digital archive for more or less forever. But on our offering side, we have another new branch that just started last year, which is the educational project Mobile Futurium. So the Futurium in Berlin is, of course, in the center of the capital, but we want to address also people in rural areas, in more rural areas. And you see how this Mobile Futurium looks like on this slide. And I will give you an overview what it means. It's a pilot project, so it combines practice and research. As I said, it is kind of a mobile workshop program for secondary schools in rural areas, which takes place in the schools, in the classrooms, and tries to have, I would say, impact longer lasting than just going to an exhibition. No, we want to go into the classrooms and having these workshops, which are very well received by the pupils so far. So we started in May 2024. Since then, we reached more than 10,000 students, and over the whole course of the project, we will reach more than 40,000 students or pupils. Yeah, and as I already said, we want to address and test and encourage futures literacy. I want to increase the attention a bit and will explain later what it really means. And we work together also with a scientific partner, with the Institute for Technology Assessment and Systems Analysis, the ITAS in Germany. And this is a model project which has some extra money, which is funded by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, at least until 2026, but we hope that we can continue the mobile Futurium because it is very successful. And this is just a slide. I don't want to read all the feedbacks, but some of them are really telling. So these are feedbacks from students, also from teachers, from classes that were visited by the mobile Futurium. And if you look at one of the quotes here on the left side, on the bottom of the left side, we have a student from 8th grade from a small city called Neubrandenburg. And I think it was a she, and she said, I thought the future was gonna suck, but if stuff like this happens, it could actually be good. So we have someone who was very skeptical about future and future opportunities, and then she went to our program, to our workshop program, and after that she really thinks there are options, there are possibilities, and the future is not lost. And I think this is exactly what we want to be. We want to be a place of hope. We want to encourage people that the future is not already made or the future is not lost, that we can really shape the future for the better of our lives. Yeah, and now I come to the several time mentioned term of futures literacies. So the futures literacy, I want to use it now in the in just the single form futures literacy, but we actually, I will tell later, we talk about futures literacies, but futures literacy in a definition from UNESCO is an essential skill for the 21st century, and it means the ability to use imagination to envision different futures and thus focus on shaping the future. Yeah, so it is about really using the imagination, empowering imagination as one of the strongest tools that we have as human beings. And in Futurium, we want to strengthen futures literacies through two areas, through knowledge transfer. I already told you about some of the examples. It's about participative and interactive transfer of future approaches and topics through exhibits, but also of orientation knowledge and network knowledge through events and workshops. On the other side, the methods, specifically in our workshop program, future workshops, design thinking, scenario thinking, foresight approaches. So you can see it's the knowledge transfer plus the methods transfer that from our side, from our point of view, helps to bring futures literacy forward. And the overall aim is to create and discuss future scenarios together. How do we want to live? Do we want to live in a more technology-oriented world, or is it closer to nature, or is it a combination of both? These are the debates that we want to lead. And as I said, the term is futures literacy, but we talk at Futurium in the plural again about it, futures literacies, because if you look at this interesting chart from Rachel Horst and Derek Gladwin, which wrote an article about multiple futures literacies, an interdisciplinary review. So they talk about the growing field of research in different areas of futures literacies. It's about deconstructing futures as well as embodying or disembodying futures, or talking about material futures in media, art, and literature. So there is a lot of discussion also about decolonizing futures, because of course there is no, I would say, exclusive view on the future. It's not the European view that should dominate the world. No, there are different views from different countries, from different regions of the world, and they are both, or they are all equal, and therefore we talk about a real growing field, about a field of multiple futures literacies. And futures literacies, what does it mean concretely at Futurium? I would like to give you some examples. So it means thinking about futures. At Futurium, we want to encourage the thinking about futures, which means strengthening empathy or the sense of community and seeing the future as a space of possibilities. We also want to strengthen scientific thinking, which means scientific skills, understanding the complexity, data literacy, evaluating sources, and so on. We want to encourage strategic thinking, which means, of course, strategy development, but also the dealing with the unexpected, which is very important. And this also leads to the next topic, resilience. I think futures literacies also comprise resilience. It's about tolerating ambiguity and openness to different opinions and self-confidence. And at the end, I think even the most important area for us within the whole field of futures literacies is creativity. We want to strengthen imagination, unconventional thinking, inventiveness, agility. This all counts together and leads to more creativity. And you might ask, okay, we are doing all this stuff, we are doing the methods, we are doing the content, the delivery, but what at the end, what's the impact of all of this? Are we measuring the right things even? And of course, I have to admit, you always shoot high. You hope for increased awareness of the importance of science, for instance. You hope for behavioral shifts toward a more sustainable lifestyle. You want to strengthen democracy, and so on and so on. But these things are very big topics, but hard to prove. And what we have observed is, of course, we try to evaluate also the impact in these areas. This is a long-term journey to really find right ways to measure this type of impact, and we are still far away from it. So we are developing methods, but this is still a long way to go. But what we already can observe, and what is often overlooked, are the so-called side effects of our approaches, which means we help people to develop an understanding of complexity. We try to practice a constructive approach to the unexpected. We, of course, try to maintain an openness to different viewpoints. We want to help people to see the future as a space of opportunity. And I think specifically our workshop program helps to build key problem-solving skills like time management, focusing, the ability to create scenarios, and more and more. And I think these so-called side effects, they are no side effects, they are main effects, I would say. This is something we can really observe, and we get the feedback that exactly this happens, for instance, in our workshops, but also in our exhibition, in our events, that these so-called side effects are really emerging. And if I would summarize, I would say, yes, the crucial role of these side effects is that we are helping people to make informed decisions. And this is something I think we can already see, we can already deliver, but we will, of course, proceed to measure it further. And one example for these so-called side effects is I would say one of our games. We have also gaming approaches. As I said, we have different approaches to address our topics. It's through exhibits, it's through workshops, it's through events, but also through games, because gamification is very important to create this so-called resonance with the content. And we developed a game which is called Crazy Compromises. krasse Kompromisse. It was developed when we had the focus topic of democracy. And this game forces people to take very different positions for one, I would say one subject, for instance, for creating a mobility solution for a city. So they take very opposite positions, and during the course of the game, they are more or less forced to closing in to each other and to create compromises between them. So you cannot solve the question of the game without being able to do compromises. And the compromise, as we say in Germany, is I would say it's a core principle of democracy. And so I think this game helps people understanding better this core principle of democracy. And so this is also one of the so-called side effects we can deliver with Futurium. Yeah, this is the present, but what is the future? How does Futurium intend to develop further? We started, of course, in Germany. We had at the beginning the European view on future topics, but now we want to increase our scope, and we would like to work together with international partners. We are already part of a so-called future-oriented museum synergies forums, which is an organization of future-oriented museums worldwide. And we want to increase this international perspective. We want to do special exhibitions with partners from other regions of the world. We start this year, end of this year, with a special exhibition about the futures of oceans together with a museum from Manila in the Philippines, the Mind Museum in Manila, which is just one example for our more international scope. We want to try to fusionate our program pillars like Exhibition Lab and Forum to more joint formats, because I think this is one strength of this house, that we are not just one branch, we are several branches, and we can really show interdisciplinary approaches. Of course, digitalization will further play a role and will be increased over time together with the haptic experience. We want to increase our outreach. I talked about the mobile Futurium, but we want to target more groups without academic backgrounds. And of course, we want to increase participation. We want to involve the public more in the choice of topics and also the further development of the Futurium. You see, this is a full program that we have on our schedule. Yeah, now I'm coming to the end. I would like to close with a quote from a very famous German-Austrian writer, journalist, and pioneer futurologist. It's from Robert Jung, who, for instance, developed the format of the so-called future workshops, Zukunftswerkstätten, and is really someone who we still can refer to. And he said already in 1988, only those who invent the future in advance can hope to influence it effectively. And I think this is exactly what we try to encourage. We want to empower people to invent their futures in advance, to come into discussion, to come into debate, to be able to positively influence a future. I think we need this imagination and not we should avoid to really to go blind into the future and be just driven over by future developments. I think therefore it is very, very helpful to design future scenarios, to imagine different futures. Yes, I hope it wasn't too long. It wasn't boring for you. Thank you very, very much for your attention. We have also tried to translate this gratitude into Korean. Please try to decide for yourself whether we have succeeded in this. As we unfortunately don't have the opportunity for a direct exchange today, I would have loved to discuss with you about my presentation here. I would be very pleased to receive feedback and networking opportunities. Of course, you can find my email address here on this slide, but in any case, the organizers of the Future Museum Forum also have my contact details. I will end now, if possible, the presentation mode. I think, yes, it works. Just a moment. Yes, and I would like to invite you, if you are planning to come to Berlin, please be sure to visit the Futurium. I can guarantee you it's worth it. And I would like to, of course, further discuss with you about our house and about the opportunities for the future for further development. I wish you a successful and insightful conference, and I hope to meet you soon in person, whether in Berlin or some other place in the world. Thank you very, very much.